Okay, here we are, the call-in edition. This is great. We haven't done one of these in a while because of the retreat. We had two roundtables basically back to back. And so now we get to do a call-in show. So for everybody who isn't familiar with this, you actually get to participate in this episode. I'm going to set up the sign-up form very shortly, but just wanted to say our hellos and just get this party started. I did want to mention very quickly that I am, in fact, a little bit sick. I have a fever and I've been rocking that for about 2 days. And so I'm a little on the delirious side. I'm not necessarily thinking at 100%. So we're going to see where this goes, and it should be a lot of fun.
My whatever it's called, sleep thing. I have like a hotspot corner shortcut right next to the mute button. So sometimes when I scroll over to it, my whole screen goes black. So anyway, that's what just happened. But I am, yeah, excited. I love the call-in shows. They're always a blast. Hopefully we get some people in early, because like the live group chats, it's oftentimes towards the end that the queue gets all sorts of fired up. So if you are on here interested in chatting, definitely hop in. I know some people get nervous about hopping in, but there's nothing to be afraid of. We are about the least scary, judgmental people you can come across. So if you're concerned, if you're worried about hopping on a live like this, do not fear. If you feel like you have nothing to say, just come on and chat. Questions, insights, thoughts, just stories, whatever. It's all on the table. So looking forward to Delirious Ray getting after it. He's holding up with the sickness, so we all appreciate that. And yeah, if you're listening to this after the fact, we do these every 2 weeks on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're interested in getting on one of our podcast episodes, super easy to do. And then every other Tuesday, we do a roundtable episode for anyone on tier 2 or tier 3 of Patreon. You get to be on an entire episode. The call-in show, we limit to typically around 10 minutes per person, but the roundtables are a whole episode. Basically get to be a guest on the episode for 2 full hours. So if you ever wanted to be on a podcast, it is available. And so I look forward to seeing who we get in here, but should be fun as usual. These oftentimes lead to some cool discussions, get some good questions in here. And I think it's fun for everyone to hear people's questions, thoughts, going back and forth, because you hear plenty of me and Ray. So it's fun to get some other perspectives involved. So if you enjoy that, be one of those perspectives. Be another perspective that gets involved. Even if you think you have the dumbest question in the world, just hop on and ask it. And we appreciate any and all questions. So looking forward to this one.
For sure. And not just questions, but I mean, if you want to share a victory, share an insight, share something that you've been going through in your life, we'd love to hear from you, because we are a community. And it really is just about communication, not for the purpose of getting anywhere or becoming anything, but because we already are process. We already are process. And so coming together is just facilitating more of that process. And that's all there is to it. It's really not about trying to get anywhere. It's about just being who you are and sharing that with those that can appreciate it or have the wherewithal to at least see what you're doing and why, or at least the authenticity that you're trying to do it with. That all said, I just wanted to mention that you can join us now. Just go to dualisticulnity.com/live. There is a form that you have to sign up, just because you have to agree that this is eventually going to become a podcast episode that everyone else can listen to. So anything that you say on this episode is public. It will be available after the fact. That's all. You just have to sign up for that. And then you can join us in the queue. And of course, anybody who is in the queue, it's about 10 minutes per person. So do be patient, because we go through these pretty quick once the lineup really starts. But don't wait. If you have questions or anything you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the meantime, until anyone hops in here, yesterday was fun. We had a lot of very fun chats. I'm excited for everyone to listen back to those episodes, because it was both, what was it, Raw 47 and season 4, episode 19. And yeah, I mean, we were just rolling. We had a Patreon call in between that we stayed pretty deep, but yeah, I would say that's one of the deeper chats we've had in a while. So it was a lot of fun, but all circling around the recognition that it's very much could be a dream and is no different than a dream. And for me, one of the biggest things that hit me was how much I still have a narrative about the word dream and how dream is just a fucking word for an experience that I deem to be quote unquote not real. But again, it's real to me in the moment, as it always is. The dream always seems real when you're in it. So who's to say that this isn't also that? But I'm excited to listen back to those too, because I feel like I was processing and asking questions and just trying to keep up with all of it as I went. But yeah, that was a lot of fun yesterday. And I think my brain is still processing a lot after those two.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. It's actually a little easier, I think, today because of the delirious state that I find myself in. I'm very detached in general. Like I'm really just experiencing what it is I'm experiencing because it's so all encompassing. I'm really not thinking about what I'm going to do later or what I did yesterday. Like you keep mentioning the conversation yesterday. I keep drawing a blank. I'm like, right. Something about reality. I did want to mention very quickly that it's actually 3 episodes that are going to be released very shortly. There's also a community topics on synchronicities that frankly is fucking awesome. I was really impressed with how it all came together because we certainly don't try to put them together. That's the other thing that I always find funny about this is that we really don't plan these. Like if you go back over the last 4 seasons of Dualistic Unity, it would be easy for you to assume as each season scaffolds to the next season and each insight builds upon other insights, it would be really easy to assume, wow, you really put a lot of thought into this, which is fucking hilarious because we're not. See, that's the whole thing. We're getting out of the way. And so that organization is happening by virtue of the intelligence that's being processed as opposed to form, or force as opposed to force, right? So it's just us getting out of the way and allowing life to organize itself because that's what it does. We are intelligence. It's just that we're so busy getting caught up in what's right and what's wrong, where we got to go, what we got to do, all that stuff. It just messes everything up. And I say this after years of experience of trying to create something that would have this impact. Everything about that intention changes it. This is true about everything. Trying to create a relationship that satisfies a certain need or trying to create a job that gets you to a certain level of success or a certain level of happiness, all this stuff, it immediately distorts your path. You may not see it now, but 10, 20 years down the road, you're going to look back and you're going to see how those little moments of need that you did not address changed your path and have caused not consequences so much as just considerations. Because everything we do creates a ripple in ourselves and in the world around us because they're the same thing. And so it really is just about relaxing, being what you are, and not giving into that urge to try to be something else. Not give into that urge to satisfy that need that your brain's like, this is important. That's all it is. It's just giving yourself the space and the time to consider with awareness and clarity. And in that space and that time to consider, your choices change. But how often do we do that? All of a sudden, something pops up in our life. We feel the press in terms of the emotions. We feel the press in terms of all of the considerations that are happening, the people involved, things that are going to happen in our lives moving forward, all of that. And we're like, Jesus, I got to make a fucking choice. This sucks. And we make the worst possible choice as a result because we're so desperate to escape that. And so anything done from a state of fear immediately creates more reasons to fear. And so it's just taking that space, removing yourself. And by yourself, I mean removing your idea of yourself from the consideration and actually giving it your attention, actually allowing your intelligence to process what it is.
Yeah, it's almost as if we're always investing in a given mentality. And so when we do get involved in needing something or really wanting something or thinking that it adds anything to us, it creates a sort of vicious cycle that then requires you to act in certain ways relative to what you're investing in and what you think you're needing. And so it's interesting, even just you today saying how little concern you have with, you know, the sickness and deliriousness of it. It's interesting because I think everyone's familiar with that experience when they're just feeling like a bag of shit and there's just so little concern that you're almost more fluid with everything because you're very much not investing in mentality of perceiving yourself in any way, shape, or form. And you're like, all right, you know, bar is at the floor. Let's just see what happens. Zero expectations whatsoever. And that's when you're at your in your freest state, which is funny because it's like usually there's some misery that needs to come first, but you start to realize, oh, maybe I don't need the misery to come first, and I can just tap into that without so much concern and be free in that.
Exactly. We have a guest in the queue. This is the first, and it is somebody that we know very well. She's been a member of the community for quite some time. She's often in our group discussions on Patreon and otherwise, and so we're happy to have her here. She would like to discuss No Fucking Clue, which is great because we're right in that topic. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Marie, welcome. We're just going to fill some space here while she joins us. This is always a lot of fun to have these call-in shows. It's great.
Oh yeah. Marie, I'm pumped.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you both. I'm so happy to do this. I'm glad this worked out.
Likewise.
Yeah, I just wanted to listen to what was going to happen and then see where it was going to go. And it was good because it was something that was on my mind anyway. I had a meeting yesterday at work where I was proposing like this, like, let me do this whole new role for myself. And to just kind of create more opportunities for students and faculty to, like what you say, Ray, relax, pay attention, and be themselves. So that's really what I feel like I proposed in the short term of words. Is like, oh, here's ways I could do this now. And they were so impressed because like I put so much work into it. Honestly, it just came from a place of fuck it attitude. Like, let's just, why not? Like, why not do this? And I stuck with that. Of course, you know, you had those moments of doubt, like last week I had a terrible after school class where like shit just hit the fan. And obviously I laugh at those moments now. But in my mind, like for a moment, I was like, do you know what the fuck you're doing? Like here you are about to propose how you could create this whole role for yourself, for your teaching students and you don't know, and you know, you have that voice, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And it's like, okay, but that's maybe so, but I still got passion for what I'm trying to bring to people. And I think that's what I just brought. I brought so much enthusiasm, and I brought that attitude that you were just saying, Andrew, of just like absolute freedom. Let me just like release all that shit and just go with this flow is the only thing. And so that's what I did throughout the whole meeting. And it just felt so fucking freeing. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that freeing, what that's been like for all of us. And I know it's only 8 minutes, but like, but yeah.
That's fucking incredible. That's awesome. I know we've been talking about you wanting to get involved and do something along those lines. So to take the step and fucking plunge in and just that, right? And even those moments where you're like, I don't know necessarily if I know what I'm doing. Like I've had so many of those moments. And what's nice is that immediately you fall back to the recognition. It's like, right, but I've been here before. I've been in those situations where I didn't know what to do before and I figured it out. Right? I figured it out. It's just that immediate panic that we have to deal with. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And immediately there's all that thought about us not knowing what to do and somebody else would know what to do. And God, if only I could find the help. Right. And all of it is just the panic. Whereas if you stopped and didn't give into that panic, you would work on the next point of the problem. The next step would become obvious. And that's something I've reminded myself over the years. It's like, what can I do next? That's it. Not what's the whole project, but what can I feasibly do next that will lead to something else making sense, right? And then you just build it from there. But that's it, is having faith in yourself. That's fucking amazing, Marie.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. It's so funny that the fuck it mentality how much we, in a certain perspective, will think that's just being lazy. Oh, you're not preparing. Oh, just fuck it, whatever, no concern. Oh, easier for you to do. I have so many concerns. I have to be focused on this, and I can't afford to not be concerned about this. But the reality, there's that perspective, and then there's the reality of how it actually plays out. And no matter how much concern you have, how much you want a certain situation to happen, how fucking prepared you are, and how much you think you still don't know what's going to happen next. And so I really do think that whole fuck it mentality, just having a lack of concern for what's going to happen, how it's going to play out, what the outcome is going to lead to, because you really don't know, what's best for you. That is when insights are actually allowed to arise. That's when we're following that gut instinct. That's when it's being expressed. Like the flow is being expressed through it when we say, fuck it, I have no fucking idea, I'm just going to step in. And then it just flows. That's almost, I don't know, like the only time it flows. I think if you did know exactly what you were doing, it would be coming from, knowledge, intelligence, the mind saying, this is what's best. And I know, okay, now I'm comfortable. And then there's no flow that's followed. There's no gut instinct. There's no insights, new novel insights that are allowed to arise. And so I really do think that mentality is almost a necessity, or at least a lack of concern for where it's going to go, what it's going to lead to. But in order to do that, you have to let go your concern about yourself, because as long as that's there, then this means a lot. It needs to go well. This needs to go exactly how I want it to go. But the fucking mentality is really the first step, along with faith in yourself, to allowing those insights to arise and to be able to tap into the flow that's always there. So that's fucking awesome to hear.
Yeah. It's really cool just to continuously recognize that. It's just more and more of that, that I know we talk about that a lot. It's just, this is what it is. And I love when you can feel it when it's happening, like, oh shit, like, like it does feel like, I keep bringing it back to that episode where we're blindfolded, and you brought up like the flying, like you could literally feel it, like, oh my God, like I'm really just grooving through this, and everything, you could just, it's worth, like, how you can't express with these human word noises. We could do our best, and I think you all do it so well, and I appreciate getting to listen to it and be a part of this. And it's so beautiful, and it definitely allows me to find that recognition even more. Like, here I thought, oh wow, like I'm in a pretty good place, and then I found y'all, and I'm like, wow, like more and more. And so I just want to throw that in there too. It's just really good to be part of the flow.
You inspire us regularly, Murray, because it really is just the one step to the next. Like, it starts with the little bit of, oh, I'm judging myself because, I don't feel like I've dressed up enough for work this morning. Fuck it. Right. And it's a little one. We're just like, fuck it. And then we kind of feel a little better. We're like, that's nice. All right. I felt kind of nice. A little bit of freedom. Right. And then later on, we're in line or something, or it's rush hour and we're getting all pissed off. We're like, fuck it. I mean, what's it doing getting pissed off anyway? Another little step. And all you've done is you've just all of a sudden added those two together as a recognition that you can do that. Right. And that's all we're doing, is just adding to that recognition. And what's nice about these conversations, I know for me personally, is listening to you go through this process. And this is why I love the groups. I love how often we keep in touch. It just reminds me of the very same thing I've been learning over and over and over again. And I find myself applying it even more than I ever did before. And for anybody who's listened to the podcast, you're aware, like, this has meant a lot to me for a long fucking time. And all of a sudden it's like I'm stepping up the pace by slowing it down. It's such an interesting experience, but I have to say, Marie, that listening to your insights, listening to your victories, listening to all of these things that you go through week by week, that has led to here and will continue to lead to even cooler fucking stories down the road. Like, I'm so grateful. I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, it's fun to see them build on themselves. And that's another interesting thing. It's like, you don't recognize your kid growing up as much. You don't recognize the progress you're making in your life. And yet those around you start to recognize it more and more. And yet you're in it and you are feeling more free, but it's very hard to notice. And so we get caught in, being concerned of whether we're making progress or, oh, are things really changing? Oh, I'm still dealing with this and that. And this thing's coming up. And then just like that continued process of stepping into it, just taking the next step, despite how you feel, paying less attention to that voice that's so concerned, because just knowing that you're always making progress, no matter what, no matter what you think is happening, it's going, it's moving. And you also don't know the impact that you're having. Like you never really do. Like you stepping into this role, doing your best to create this could be impacting everyone involved, seeing like, oh, someone's doing this. And they could, you never know. And it could be in 10 years, someone who's involved in it, it's like thinking about a project. And they're like, oh, remember when Marie did that? Remember when Marie said she didn't have any idea what she was doing and she stepped into it? I can do that too. And then they do it. And then, we're so concerned in the moment of like, oh, what is this doing? And it's having so much more impact than we could ever possibly imagine all the time. So yeah, and I'm just talking to myself here, like let go of the fucking self-judgment. You don't have to do that. You're having far more impact than you could ever possibly imagine. But it's awesome to see it from you because it's been really cool to watch.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a story quickly because I know, Marie, you have not yet joined us at a retreat, but I'm planning on seeing you at one very, very soon. The last retreat that we had, it was so interesting because part of somebody's journey at that retreat was allowing themselves to be themselves, to show off a little bit and maybe sparkle a bit. And so they came to the retreat with some sparkles that everybody very much put on their forehead and under their eyes. And so we all were wearing these sparkly masks around the bonfire. It was all kind of funny. And it was a great moment. But what was interesting is that my daughter, who was also at the retreat, was feeling a little hesitant to join the group. And so we talked and I was like, well, go ahead, let's go in and we'll talk to everybody. And immediately everybody just opened up and they're like, welcome. Oh, let's find you some diamonds. Let's find you some sparkles. And everybody was so involved with what they were doing for their own fulfillment, what they were doing as an expression of how good they already felt. They didn't even recognize the role that they were playing in my daughter's life, in allowing her to just be herself, in allowing her to get out of her comfort zone and be fully embraced and accepted. And it made a huge impact. But we don't know that. We really don't. And we can't know that. So you may as well live for you. You may as well live for you because you don't even see how much impact it has, but it has it.
And also like living for you, I think of as like you too. You know what I mean? Like I am living, like, right? But like I see you as you too. So I am gonna extend this onto you because it's the same. And it's a beautiful recognition to continue to have. And I love these conversations so much. I have to imagine PMAC wants to hop in here too, though, and I want to give her the space.
Oh, called out. PMAC, we see you. We see you in the chat. But yeah, Marie, it's funny because living for you is living for you. That's
For
it.
you.
Just following that. It's all you ever have to do. And even just being willing to live for you. Sets an example, shows people they can too. And then no need to convince anyone of shit. Just being you. That'll have far more impact than you could ever possibly imagine.
Including on me. It's inspiring all the time. Marie, we love having you here. Thank you so much for being the first to call into our call-in show. For anybody who doesn't know, Marie is going to join us on our group calls on Patreon. So patreon.com/dualistic unity, and you can join us up to 5 days a week for awesome discussions like this.
Totally. Thank you both so much. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye, Marie. Great chatting.
Bye.
All right. I love Marie. She's awesome. She's always fun to have these chats with. And she's on Patreon all the time. So I really enjoy chatting with her there as well. But it's a powerful recognition, living for yourself. And I'm also very excited for our next guest here.
Likewise, Amanda, everybody knows Amanda because Amanda is a huge part of Dualistic Unity, and she had an insight this morning that she would like to discuss with us. So I'm very excited to hear what it is. Amanda, thank you for joining us as always. Everybody who doesn't know, Amanda is actually the administrative coordinator for Dualistic Unity. She keeps us on the straight and narrow, make sure that we are being productive in our lack of productivity, as it were. And we are always very grateful for all of the help that she offers, not just us, but the community. People will know Amanda from Discord, where she is constantly answering questions and offering advice. And if you have a skill that you would like to add to this community, she is there to help facilitate and make you feel like you are welcome here, because you are. And so without any further gilding of the lily, hi, Amanda.
Hey.
Hey, Amanda.
Thank you for the warm welcome. It's no surprise I like to be here. It's pretty obvious. I don't have a poker face. I used to hate that. Now I'm like, fuck it. You're welcome. Because you know exactly where I stand most of the time, whether that's extremely motivated or not. But I was thinking about motivation, and that was spurned from our conversation yesterday about love. And so that was making me think about choices. And then I was sitting on the podcast. I was sitting on my thoughts of the podcast or the Patreon call from yesterday. And I woke up this morning and I just had these thoughts about motivation, or the lack of motivation, and how I used to think of myself and describe myself as a very self-motivated, ambitious, driven person. And right now, I don't feel motivated the same way that I used to. It feels so different because I still feel very energetic, right? And I still feel like I have so much to give, and that there's so much accessible, that there's so many options, but it feels like I can choose any of the options, but it feels differently that I can choose them all, because it doesn't really feel like me choosing. It kind of feels like I will be presented with a few different options, and then I'm kind of living multiple options at once, both the yes, no, and maybe, and sometimes an alternative, a combination. So it's so interesting that I will be living multiple options at once. And then just by getting out of the way, by not telling myself what I think I need or want, the option that stays is usually the option that fits best to where I am in terms of depth and speed. Because, I was thinking about habits and cycles and patterns. And I was like, do I ever really break a habit? I don't really think, maybe I don't. Maybe the habit that I think is broken is just on a longer rotation. And just because I don't see it doesn't mean that it's broken, but it also doesn't mean that it's important if I don't see it or if I didn't break it, because if it comes back around, it's most likely coming back with like a lesson or some kind of opportunity attached to it. So do I break habits? I don't know. Do I make decisions? I don't know. I really... So that's what I woke up with this morning, guys.
That's amazing. And it's funny because it always, when I go through this very similar insight, because you're looking at the process. That's really what you're looking at. It always reminds me of one of those old-fashioned safe crackers. Everybody know that whole thing, like from movies where they're robbing a safe and they put their ear up and they got the device and they're listening very, very carefully for the click, 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 click. And there it is. That's very much what I see when I'm seeing this. It's like we're going through these rotations, waiting for them to line up. And then all of a sudden it's like we move on to another part of that rotation. It changes the entire thing, but it's like a fucking time lock. And the only thing that changes how quickly we go through it is how much awareness we have. It's just how much we're watching without being involved, just watching without preference or judgment. And then all of a sudden in that awareness, there comes a clear choice. You're like, oh, well, that, obviously that. Right? Whereas the rest of the time, there was nothing obvious about it. Beautiful.
Yeah, that cycle habit thing just hit me in a different way. I've not thought of that one before, but holy shit. Because it really, like, even just as you were talking, I was like, oh fuck, that is happening. I really don't know what the fuck is happening ever. Like, even with that, because what you were saying with motivation and being a self-motivated person, like, I totally resonate with that. And I think there's a whole mentality of like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Like there's a reason that you're doing it, because you're trying to be something. You're trying to become something for the world. And they're the two things are coming from totally different places. The motivation in that mentality versus motivation without that need. It's just, and that, you know, eternity comes into play, and it's like, okay, I'm sitting in eternity, might as well do this. Oh, what, I don't know what to do. Just pick something. You might as well do that. I don't know, whatever. But then with the things that we're experiencing and going through, like, and the last couple of weeks, I've been like feeling stuff that I felt like I haven't felt in 10 years, and just like concerns and all this shit coming back up. And there's part of me that's like wants to say something about it and wants to say, like, know what's going on. And it just, even as you were just saying that, it hit me like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is, what this cycle I'm currently going through is. So yes, I'm experiencing things that I did a long time ago, but it's from a totally different perspective, because I've been through this, and I know that I spent years dealing with that shit and fighting them, thinking they shouldn't be that way. It hindered me from doing all the things. And now it's like, oh yeah, they're still there, but it's not stopping me anymore. There's not that concern for it. It's like, okay, it makes me concerned about certain things, but there isn't so much concern for that concern. And so it's interesting to go through similar things, but from a different perspective. It's like you can see the lessons there, as opposed to just being so involved in, what does this mean about me? I have to fix this. Oh my God, am I worth anything anymore? It's like, you don't have to pay attention to that.
No. So even when we do find ourselves in a similar but obviously different situation, but with similar frameworks, that reminds me of, I was watching Becoming, the Netflix documentary about Michelle Obama's book, and someone asked her, you know, how do you get back on track to your life before the Obama presidency? And she's like, back on track, honey. It's a whole new track. Everything's different. There is no going back to that track, because everything has changed since you were on that track. So even if it looks similar, it is entirely different, because you are different. And by you being different, the track is different. Even if you see similar landmarks from before, the experience will be different, as you know, just because it can't not be different. And I thought that was so interesting that she said that it's like, there's never getting back on track, because you never could get back to that track, because you're always on new tracks. You're always changing. The tracks are always changing. And I think things seeming similar is like a learning tool. It's almost like a learning flag. It's almost like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, where am I? And what am I doing? And what's the memory? What's tied to that landmark? What's tied to that association, whether it's negative or positive? So it's almost like if things were entirely different, you'd always be having to absorb a whole new scenario. But when things are repeated, you get to absorb things differently, because you're different as the observer, as the sponge, you're different. So you soak up different things the second, third, 15th, 100th million time around. So it feels like I'm in the Groundhog Day dream, and everyone's cycle is matching perfectly with my cycle. So when someone leaves a parking spot for the millionth time that we've been in the scenario, it's right on time for me because of the timing that I left home. So even though we're on different paths, we're always making space and filling space for each other. And it's like, how many times have we done it? Who fucking cares? Are you paying attention while you're doing it this time? Because that's what you should be focusing on.
Nice. Well said. And again, this is something I've always tried to get across in my life coaching, is that there is a source of energy that has nothing to do with the carrot or the stick. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with how much you're getting out of each and every moment, just being in it. You know, like I was saying to Andrew, and I said earlier to you today, I'm not feeling well. Like, admittedly, I'm not at 100% right now. I'm still up. Why? Not because, oh God, I can't disappoint the masses. There's none of that. Like, it's more or less just that I could lie in bed, or I could get up. You know, I may as well get up. I'm still going to experience the same thing. It's just that at least now I can put my energy and my attention into something. And as I said to my daughter, that's how we start feeling better. We indicate to ourselves that we'd like to get better, that we have the strength and the energy to do so, and our body listens.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's almost like it follows that every time. And even with, you know, letting go of a certain thing, or coming to terms with a certain experience or emotion or whatever it is, inevitably it's getting to a spot where you're just like, you know, like we were talking with Marie, fuck it. gonna do it anyway. Not gonna let this stop me. And at some point, it's always that. So might as well be sooner than later. Like hop two, might as well get to it now, or you can just continue to wallow in it as you go. But the back on track thing, I really like that as well. That's powerful, because it's almost like there is no track. Let go of your idea of there being a track, and then there's nothing to get back on, because you are the track. So
Yeah.
everything you do is the track. You're always, on track. It's just your perception that you're off. And as you let go of the concern for being on or off the track, then you're aligned with the track, which is just the flow through that lack of concern. And then it's like everything's far more relaxing dealing with that. And then as that, cycle comes back around, when you're paying attention to it, when you're attentive to it, that's when I guess it starts to subside more easily. And like maybe every time you've been through it, you just weren't paying attention to it and you were trying to avoid it the entire time. So yeah, powerful.
Just incredible. And I just want to say, Amanda, as always, thank you for sharing your insights with us. This is what it's all about, because, and I know there are certain insights that are very difficult to communicate. And I know that there are certain, especially when we're talking about this, because we're not talking about metacognition necessarily, which is, the act of thinking about how thinking works, right? We're actually looking at the process of being reality. Like we're actually looking at how everything kind of cycles around each other and everything is connected. And that conversation is very difficult to have with anybody who identifies as a very small part, because you'll never get past their need and their fear. And so I really appreciate you coming here and sharing this incredibly deep insight with us about the process and again, the requirement, or rather the option of faith and awareness as a simple strategy in itself, not as a form of control, but as a way of applying all of the intelligence that you are.
Well, it hit me hard this morning. So I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then you were talking a little bit about like decision making and motivation at the beginning of this. And I was like, holy shit. All right, then we have to share it. So I'm just really glad that it's not just for me to appreciate and make use of. So, my win is your win. It's our win, because we're all in this together. So thanks again, guys. And, keep up the good work.
Awesome. You as well, Amanda. Always a pleasure chatting. Love having you on here, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Yeah. And anybody who would like to hear more of Amanda's fantastic insights, again, just join us on our Patreon groups or jump on our community Discord, because she's always there and she's always lending an ear or a valuable insight and advice. And she's just very supportive and we love her. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda. Wow. This call-in show is going well. Woo. We have another person in the queue. So we're going to get to that in just 1 second. I do want to remind everyone that this episode lasts for about another hour. So each conversation we have is going to be about 10-ish minutes. If you would like to join us, I do recommend that you get in the queue now, because usually towards the last 45 minutes, that's where everybody wants to have a discussion. So if you'd like to get in here and have this discussion with us, we would love for you to join us. So I'm just throwing that out there now. And we are joined by Justin, who would like to talk about the essence of infinite beauty, the true experience of nature and reality. Don't know what I can say about infinite beauty, but we'll see where this goes.
Excited for it. Sounds like it'll go. So should be fun as always. But yeah, coming in hot today with the insights from everyone. Always fun to see.
Hello.
Justin, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Justin.
How you doing? I still don't know how Zoom works. I'm sorry, I'm so dark.
No, you're good, dude. You're good.
I did not really expect to get in the call today. I was just like, I was just want to check out the live stream and said, hey, y'all got a call, and I said, oh, I just might as well pop in. I've been thinking about like somehow like coming on this video call like at least once. So I just said, yeah, whatever, I'll just do it. So I just wanted to talk about essence of infinite beauty and like true experience of nature and stuff. But like, I didn't honestly, I didn't really think too deep in it, because I was just saying, hey, this might work. I don't know if they're gonna pick up or something. So I was like, yeah, whatever, just roll with it. But yeah, I am here. It's nice to be here. But I wanted to talk about how the more like is the experience of letting go of your concepts of reality and how it can make you go deeper into the actual experience of what is. And if you like, it's like, it feels like things are getting more clearer, but it's just like your vision getting less distorted to actually what is. And like, I don't know if y'all could relate, but like actually like seeing and perceiving, especially things in nature, when you let go of those concepts of what you interpret the thing to actually be, instead of it actually experiencing the thing up front without any interpretation, it makes that thing infinitely more beautiful, because it's like awareness in itself. It's the whole fabric of the universe, of all existence, in one thing. And that just makes everything like absolutely bonkers beautiful. I mean, like, I could be looking like a fucking shoe or some shit on the ground next to a pile of dog shit. I'd be like, oh my God, that's some beautiful ass shit. That's the most beautiful thing ever. because it's actually fucking, it's the essence that the whole universe is built up on. It's the whole essence of everything. You can't explain it. That's the point. You can't explain it. You can't really put any name onto it. And
Not
that's
without distorting it. No.
yeah, exactly. So you can't really describe it or anything. So you're just supposed to go off of it. And so that just makes everything. That's what I just call it infinite beauty, but it's not actually infinite beauty. But you get the point. You get the whole point. Yeah. So I just wanted to try if I would see if I actually go on the podcast. I'm not going to cap. But yeah. So I'm on I'm on here. So what.
I love it, man. I'm so grateful for you coming on here. And I recognize the experience so very much. It's been half my life practicing that state and just living within it. Because there's experiencing it and then there's integrating it, right? Because you can experience like that and then you get a job and it's like, oh yeah, all these triggers. Or you're in a relationship with someone, you're like, oh yeah, all those childhood needs and all that comes up. And so it's always just letting go and coming back to that point where you're like, right, this is real. The shit in my head is not, right? This is real. And so it's a deepening experience. I'm so very grateful that you found us, man. And I'm glad that you called in.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the whole backbone of, I wouldn't say spirituality, but oh my God, my phone is so crappy. But a whole backbone. I'm really streaming off a Walmart laptop, not laptop, but Walmart tablets. Things cost like $60, but whatever, it works. So that's the whole backbone of growing, I like to say fucking growing, but you're not really growing anything. You're kind of letting go. You're letting go into like what actually is. And to me, it seems impossible to not perceive myself being like, not perceive, but like not see myself actually being other people, because this is my perspective. Everything is coming from my perspective, and that's how everyone else is. So what is to say that the thing that, which is me, the pure essence of perceiving, isn't in everyone else and every other living thing? So yeah, it's like, it's impossible to me, it seems impossible to not know that. But the distortion of your consciousness, it's a beautiful illusion. It's a really beautiful illusion. And after you lift that veil, you're like, you look back at your past, like, how the hell did I not fucking fucking know it? And it's crazy. It's actually crazy. It's actually really beautiful. It's really beautiful how heaven can be shifted to the distortion of your mind to make it seem like it's hell. And it's absolutely crazy, absolutely bonkers.
It is, man. It's fucking nuts. And it's funny because as you start to see it more and more, you ask the question of like, how did I ever not see this? But there's a lot that's gets in the way of that. And even we were talking about yesterday or the day before, just anytime, as soon as, a judgment or a opinion taken as truth comes into play, it's like whose judgment is that? Whose opinion is that? That's you. You're back into the equation. And so it really does take, the reality of staying on the ball as you go, like just as those come up, just be like, yeah, but that's not it. And that allows you to stay in that state of recognizing the infinite absurdity, the infinite beauty, whatever you want to call it, of reality. But once you start to see it, it's hard to ever fully unsee. You can absolutely get lost back in it, but it's kind of there, and it's always, you recognize how it's always right there too, as soon as you drop whatever you're holding so tightly, because a fear is coming up, a worry, a concern, what something means about you arises. It's like, oh, but it doesn't mean anything about me. I don't have to get lost in that. But it's incredible when you see it. That clarity is nothing to compare to that, really.
And it's so crazy because like once that thing in your mind comes up, it makes it seem like it's true. It's like it's convincing. It really is. But the thing is that you hold it in your mind. That's the point. You're holding it in your mind. And if you're holding that idea in your mind, then it obviously cannot be the truth of the outside. It cannot obviously be the truth of reality because it's in your mind. So like it's so amazing. Like I'd be like trying like, yo, I want to go back. I want to see what my perception of separation was, what it used to be like. And I was like, oh, I can't really go back to it because back then, if I envision it, then it's still an illusion. It's still, you can't really go back to the illusion of separation since the illusion wasn't really there to begin with. It was just a concept. It was just what you thought. And it's awesome. It's awesome. I'm just saying it's just busting. But sorry if anything I'm saying doesn't really have any back.
You're in good company, man, for sure. Absolutely. This is a conversation that we have pretty much all the time because it's awe-inspiring when you start to recognize that your idea of yourself isn't the truth, and that what remains is unity. What remains is that everything is just what is. And what gets me, and I liked what you were saying at the beginning, because this is something I always find really funny. We feel like we are somehow growing. We're like, aha, I'm raising an awareness. It's like, but you're raising an awareness of what already is. Like nothing's actually changed. You're still what is. It's just that you're willing to see more of yourself because you're not as afraid. There's not as much judgment.
There's absolutely no judgment at all. There's actually nothing in reality is really wrong. Nothing in reality is really like bad, good, or evil. Nothing is. It's just a concept. I literally pee out my window. I'm not even gonna cap. I do. There's like a little like hole in there. There's like a little fucking like hole in like on the windowsill. Fuck, dude. I'd be waking up in the middle of the night and say, fuck, dude. I don't feel like getting up. I just be peeing out my window, dude. I was like, fuck it, bro. I am feeling like it. So I just be going back to bed. But like I don't perceive that as bad. Nothing is bad. So yeah, it's really mind-boggling how much confines of who you think you are, what reality is, what is good or wrong, can narrow your vision of what's possible, what's actually able to happen, because it is all comes back to your idea of yourself, your idea of what reality is, what's good or bad. It's just all limiting. It's all limiting factors.
Exactly.
Textually baseline of the truth.
Always. Yeah. There's what's the Shakespeare's quote? There is no good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It isn't anything until your mind makes it into a story, typically rooted in you, what it means about you, your concern, how comfortable or uncomfortable it makes you. It's like without that, it can't, it couldn't possibly be anything. It has to exist inside of your mind in order to be able to even possibly be judged. And people have just taken their mind to be the truth so many times that we've gotten used to it. And now we just assume that it's always correct, that our mind's reality, as opposed to never being so.
Yeah. Well, my time's up, but I really appreciate y'all having me on this podcast. Yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice.
You've added a lot to this conversation. As always, I do encourage you, if you can, join us on any of our groups. We have a free group every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. You can join us for an hour, and we just do this with a lot of our community. Likewise, we have a Discord. If you can jump on there, there's a lot of people having this chat. Perfect.
I joined the Discord,
awesome.
but I got banned.
What?
yeah. I was like fucking stoned one time. I was like talking about like how like my teeth, I had to go to the dentist, my teeth are yellow. And someone said, yeah, you should keep your teeth clean. Yeah, I appreciate the gesture. Yeah, you should keep your teeth clean. But I was like, yeah, but it'd be funny if I said I could still eat your mom's pussy or something.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that'll get you banned
Yeah,
almost
that's
immediately.
sad.
That's totally fair. We'll see what we can do in the future. But if you can join us on one of the groups and get to know our moderators, they may decide to change their mind. But Justin, we appreciate you being here, especially given the tech problems that you were mentioning in terms of the device. But I think it worked out great. The fact is you were able to join us.
Yeah, I loved it. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Right.
See you, Justin. Great chatting.
Yeah, I have no idea how this computer.
All right. Yeah,
That was awesome.
Yeah, Justin.
That was
awesome. Yeah.
So I just want to mention very quickly that while we do encourage all kinds of conversation in our community and on our Discord, there are certain things that will get you banned from the Discord. And it's just based on the fact that people are there with a specific intention, which is to do some self-reflection. And it's easy to get distracted, and it's easy to get caught up in drama and stuff like that. And so we very much try to avoid all of that. No argumentation if we can. Like if you want to debate something, debate, but be friendly about it, or at least civil, that kind of thing. It's not that Justin did anything wrong. Obviously, he was really high and not thinking about it, but I just wanted to throw that out there for everyone. Now, we are joined next by Tyson, who has been on the show before. We love Tyson. He always has a lot of insight to share. And this time he would like to discuss this dream, which from yesterday's Raw episode should be an excellent conversation.
Fuck yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that I know Tyson was feeling similarly, but that feeling has not gone away too much for me. But Tyson, what is up, dude?
Man, I just want to hop on here real quick because me and Andrew was I texted Andrew too on Instagram commenting on his video because it's just looking more and more like a dream. Like I've just been tripping for the past 12 hours. Like I haven't taken any mushrooms or anything. It's just that conversation that we had in the morning yesterday morning. It's just been on my mind for the past, like I said, since then. And I haven't gotten it off. It's just like I've just been scratching my head. And it's funny because last night when I was trying to go to sleep, I actually felt like I was in a dream, which was it was the weirdest feeling I've ever felt. And I put myself in that, I guess, not like mind state, but in that awareness of me, and it felt no different from if I were to, go to sleep and be in a dream, it's, and I don't know, like I kind of envisioned when we talked about like all these infinite doors, and you go through it and there's just another infinite, and I haven't gotten, I guess, I don't know, used to this feeling because I just imagine everything is happening right now. Time is a concept, everything is happening right now, but it seems like it's happening in order for it to make sense to the ego, or to us. And it's just so surreal to think that me yesterday is happening right now, but it but it just doesn't make sense to me. That happened before because it made sense to me right now. It's so crazy.
Right. We were having that conversation a few weeks ago about, going through something, understanding what you just said about time being an illusion, like everything happening here now, like being no division between any moment. So as much as we see, our younger self leading to our current self, it's like, who's to say that our future self isn't pulling our current self along, or that we're recognizing something or dealing with something, it'll lead to an insight, and we are dealing with something in the future that's leading to an insight right now. And it things start to get really fucking trippy, basically, when you start to see it and you aren't settling upon anything. And there's lots of things, so many things in our society taking us from that. Even just, watching a clock. It's like that's gonna keep you in this to a degree. But when you're not watching it so much, when you're away from that for a bit, these things start to get a lot more obvious. There isn't so much like, could it be that? It's like, no, I just fucking experienced that. Like I just felt that. I thought I resonated with something yesterday or recognized something yesterday, and now I'm recognizing it now. What exactly is the difference between that? Is it just my mind doing its best to make sense of my current situation? It makes me wonder, like, what if we didn't feel like we need to make sense of the situation at hand? What if we stopped feeling like we needed to make sense of it? Is there a degree of that that's still very much just our ego trying to make sense and trying to find some comfort in the current situation that is still entirely uncertain? And so we're almost like keeping that stuff at bay by trying constantly to make sense of it. And we say that it's subconscious, but is it not just a deeper pattern that there's, layers to get to from letting go of where we think we should be, that we can drop into that point where we don't need to make so much sense for where we're at? I don't know. It makes me wonder.
Likewise, I've been chewing on this for a very long time. I understand exactly how much fun this can be, and it is, but you have to wonder to yourself, and at least this is what I wonder, because as all of this starts to dawn on you and you start to actually recognize that your experience of time starts to change. This is the thing that's really dawned on me. It's not just that time seems to last longer, because it feels like, the last 4 decades of my life have been thousands of years at this point, but there's also this difference in how we experience the process of change or learning. And what I mean is that at one point, if I were to try and learn something, it would have taken me a very long time because of the resistance caused by Ray, and Ray trying to be something. Ray worrying about not being intelligent enough, Ray not feeling sure or certain or familiar with the task at hand, all that stuff. And so the process of learning that thing gets so much larger. And so the point where I am starting that task and the point where I understand what the fuck I'm doing are both here and now. So the process of going from one point to the other point is very much, as Tyson was saying, determined on our ego and its ability to reconcile, like, this is what should happen for me to feel good about getting from here to there. But if you get the fuck out of the way, all of a sudden the process from here to there shortens incredibly, and things become lightning fast. And you're just like, holy shit, did I just save 5 hours of work by simply not thinking about myself?
Oh my, yeah. And it's so funny because when I had this, I guess, insight, it all just boiled down to here right now. You know, I've looked at, I was, I guess, trying to find an answer for it, right? That's the funny part. Like you look for an answer, but the whole point is the question, and it was so every path, I was trying to find an answer at, it just all led to just right here now. And until I just said, okay, shut up, I just said, shut up. That's all. And at that moment, it's like, I guess that was the peak of this dream like feeling, because as I like felt everything in a way, and I haven't gotten this feeling off, and it's just like I'm just spaced out.
There's a lot processing. This is the thing, like we've talked about this before. People are like, oh God, I feel like I'm disassociating. It's like, you're not, you're just, it's all of a sudden the process has changed priority. Like you're going internal on a lot of things because there's things you're fucking chewing on. Right. And so it's very much just let it happen. Don't panic, focus on what's in front of you. Right. As always. And that feeling that you have is going to oscillate. Like you're going to go back and forth between feeling like Tyson and feeling like God, basically. And eventually what you start to realize is that neither concept is the case. And that is the process of understanding that dichotomy doesn't exist, that the reality is that you've always been you, that you will always be you, which is not what you think. And so we're just kind of taking these two concepts that we have of like ourself versus like the ideal self, and we're getting rid of both of them by just letting go of the attachment to them.
And when you're in that state of just being where you're at and letting go of the need to get anywhere or figure out anything or find any answers, there isn't so much idea of where this is going, you know, what this is leading to, what it means about you. And that allows you to stay in that. And it's like, it's right there. As soon as the concern comes up, like, what does this mean about me? Oh, I feel like I'm disassociating. Oh, that's going to look weird to that person. And I don't know, they might judge me. And all of a sudden that it's gone as soon as that concern, because you're investing back into the illusion, the thing that you aren't, you're getting concerned about again. And so it's that back and forth always. And there's a willingness to step into, you know, the concern to a point, but there's also like, I don't know, you can kind of have a foot in both worlds is raised.
Oh,
Concerned,
Andrew,
but there's
there we
still
are.
a willingness. Oh, did I cut out?
You're back.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, cool. My connection's unstable. I'll figure that out. But anyway, there's an ability to sort of be in both worlds is what I was saying, and have a foot in both worlds, and like a balance between the two, but it's only from going in and out of both and seeing what you learn from being, you know, having the foot in the illusion and then recognizing the futility of doing so. But for a while, it doesn't seem so futile until it does, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And just thinking about you, it gets in the way. You get in your way so much. Like even in the fact that we made up the idea that from here to here, in between there has to make sense for us. Like that's just us getting in the way again until you let go of what's in there. It's so it's just a matter of, that's why, hey man, that's why I always say, like, it always just comes back to here now. That's all. That is all. But you say that, and then you immediately get in your way again, like, oh, here now? So you mean like just me? Okay. So like, what do you mean like here now? Like time now? It's like, what time is it? Like 7 o'clock? Okay, here now. Like, but it's so funny how such a, I guess, simple idea, insight gets construed in a way for yourself for it to make sense. And then that's you in your way again. It's just, oh man, it's fun.
Yes, it is. And it definitely changes tone. Tyson, I just want to say very much thank you for joining us today and continuing this conversation about the dream. As always, anybody who would like to join us after the fact, you can do so by going to dualisticunity.com/live. This is going to be a fun conversation. We're going to get into this a little bit further, I think.
Yeah, always a blast chatting with you, Tyson. I appreciate your insights and enthusiasm a ton. It's always a lot of fun to share a conversation with someone who's as enthusiastic as we are about exploring this and being unwilling to settle upon any idea just because it feels a little bit more comfortable, you know.
Right. Of course. Thank you for having me up here. Good luck.
Awesome. Looking forward to our next chat, man. Talk to you soon.
So this is a really interesting point, and since there's nobody in the queue, we might as well get into it a little bit. The community, as much as you see us having this conversation, you really have no idea about what's happening in either of our lives, because frankly, we don't talk about that shit. So we're dealing with our own stories in the background, we're dealing with our own challenges, and we're dealing with our own relationships and whatnot. And out of all of that, we're applying all of the stuff that we talk about here. And what I mean by applying all of that stuff is we relax into it. And I want to make this clear that Marie expressed this, and it's been expressed a number of times by Amanda and Tyson and Justin and so on and so forth, that there is a difference in how reality starts to feel as you start to let go of that need for comfort and control, which is really just making assumptions, as Tyson was saying. It's just holding on to a concept and going, aha, now I know. Don't have to question, right? Don't have to look at all the other shit coming into my head because I know. There's a label there that says known. I don't have to look at it anymore. And that's very much, how we think. And it takes us out of the flow of processing, because we don't like the flow of processing. It implies change, constant change. And so the feeling that we're talking about of the subjective experience, because that's really what we're talking about, is allowing yourself to embrace and be in the purely subjective experience of your existence, and to have faith that you'll be okay. Knowing that the narrative, if it needs to come up, will in the moment that it's required. And that as long as you don't identify with that narrative, you can use the lesson that your mind is processing in the next thing that you say. And so it very much starts to feel like, what the luge is?
I think like the
Olympic sport, where basically they get in like a sled and go hurtling down a sheet of ice like fucking maniacs. Yeah. So that's very close to what this feels like when you are really immersed in it. It feels like you are plummeting through reality. As Marie said, it actually feels like you're flying. But with that flight, there is this feeling of just letting go. There is this feeling like you are just flying or sliding through reality. And so long as you don't grasp on to any specific concept, you're always going to be in the process of reality. And our fear is that if I don't feel like I can have control, if I don't feel certain, if I don't know what to do next, I'm going to fuck it up. And that's all based on the very idea of ourself that stops that flow. So it's all the same brake. And we do it because the experience of not putting on the brakes is fucking intense.
It really is. Oh man. Yeah. Cause I'm getting that feeling as you're saying it, even just, and it's the lack of concern. And then as soon as that comes up, it's like the brakes start hitting, you start screeching. And because there's a concern, it's like you see something, or you perceive something to be, down the road on the luge or whatever. And you're like, oh no, I don't know if I can handle that. And if you just kept going, you would have. You always have. It's your concern, your hesitancy, is this making sense? Oh, what does this mean about me? Oh, what are they thinking of me? And as soon as that idea comes back in, it's you slow down, you hit the brakes, you stumble, you tumble, you fall, all those things, because you're slamming on the brakes in an otherwise situation that would have ended up just okay. And I like the point you brought up with the identity, the idea of yourself will arise when appropriate too. I think sometimes there's the concern as you're feeling the free fall, as you're feeling the high. It's like, should I step back into identity? It's like, the funny part is you're still there. Like it's always right there. And that's part of it. That's part of the flow, is that arising. It's not something where you have to be like, okay, I'm really letting go. I'm really feeling free. I feel like I'm flying. Oh boy, should I identify right now? Should I play this part? You're still able to. I think that's the thing too. It's not like all of a sudden you can't use your name, you can't use an identity, you can't use anything. It's like it's still right there, it's still available, and it's a tool. It's a way for you to interact with the rest of yourself, but it doesn't mean that you have to add on more layers to that. It's always right there for the taking. Hop in. Deal with it, use it, whatever, play with it, whatever. Have fun with it. It doesn't mean anything about you though. And that's, I think, sometimes can be a fear, is like, oh, I don't know, if I use it, maybe I'll get caught in it. Maybe I'll think there's a concern. If for me. And that's just that's still your concern arising. It feels like it's not the concern for judgment, but it's the concern that you won't be able to handle what's to come, which you always can. And as you just keep allowing it to happen, as you keep flying, soaring in the luge, on the free fall, falling back into it, letting go, it gets more obvious how much you can handle. But it's just the hesitancy. It's like, I don't know if I can. You could have. You would have. You always would have. And so it's just continuing to step into it. And then when you hit those brakes, okay, I hit the brakes, but I can let go of them now and I can keep going. Doesn't mean anything about me for hitting the brakes either. Because as soon as you think it means something about you, as soon as you judge yourself for hitting the brakes, and you're continuing to hit the brakes by being concerned about hitting the brakes. So it's just, when you arrive, let go of the concern and continue to flow. And yeah, it's letting go. It's a fascinating experience, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that we touched this topic specifically, that you kind of have to play the dualistic role in this story because it's based on duality. So you're you and everyone else is them, and we all get to experience that. It's just the distortion caused by our psychosis that makes it so much harder, right? So we get rid of the psychosis and we're still interacting with one another in the same way that all of our cells interact with one another, but without telling ourselves we're in a separate body and causing all that shit, right? So that's really it. And so the experience is, it's funny what you were saying there, that we're afraid of what's to come, not recognizing that it's the same thing that has always come. More of you. That is all that's to come. More of you. What are you going to do with it? Right? Are you going to try and hold on to an idea of you and cut yourself off from recognizing how much more you are? Because that's very much what you're going to do. Right? That's all you're doing. You're hitting the brakes because it's feeling a bit too intense to be everything. But that intensity is the same intensity that you get when you're totally relaxed and feeling at peace. It's not that being at peace means a cessation of all the shit in your life. It's just that you're not attached to it. So it's very much the same feeling. Regardless of what pops up, you're just going through the eye of the needle.
Because even in the luge analogy, like, you're that entire luge. It's not even that you're on the luge separate from it. It's like you're the whole thing. And as that becomes clearer, as you recognize that 100 yards down the luge is still you, you're just stepping into yourself. The obstacle that you think's coming up is still you. You're facing it. You're dealing with it. And it seems like, oh, well, what does that even change? It changes everything, but you're still you, like everything and nothing, always, because you're still you facing yourself. It's just recognizing that it's still yourself. There's that lack of concern, because what could it mean about you if you're also the obstacle, if you're also the ones judging, if you're also the situation that you're dealing with? It doesn't, because you're the whole thing. So just keep stepping, keep walking through those doors and find out.
Because you're going to anyway. See, that's the thing. Like, you're going to anyway. Your life is a continuous procession of now. You can't get out of it. Why try? Because in getting into it, everything changes. You align with yourself. That feeling that you're looking for of being complete, of being whole, of being valuable, it's all right here. If you just stop running and looking for it, you would find it. It's been right here in you the entire time, because everything is right here in you. That all said, we have Mary, who was one of the earliest members of our community. We love it when she can drop by. She's often participated in the group. She's on Discord from time to time. We're going to let her into the chat right now.
Hell yeah, Mary.
Hello.
Excited. Hey, what is up? Good to see you.
Life is up, you know. How
Hell
are
yeah.
you?
Doing great. Better now. Good to see you.
Good to see y'all too. I wasn't gonna join, honestly, but then Tyson, I saw Tyson was on here, and I texted him. I was like, "Hey, I'm watching." And then once he got off, he was like, "Go join," and I didn't want to, because I was like, I don't know what to talk about. But you know what? Why not?
I don't know what to
just
talk
sit
about
on
either, if that
and talk
helps.
about life. Hey, yep, it does. Yeah, I've just been. I feel like I've been going through a lot of changes in life. But a lot of the things going on are the same, but the way I've been looking at it has been different. You know, there's highs and lows, but I feel like in the lows it's easier to have a neutral stance. So yeah, that's how it's been lately.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting point. And a lot of people suffer through that, is where addiction often comes from, right? Is that in our low points, we're like, okay, I got to get to work. This sucks. There's a lot of suffering. I got to reflect on this and see what's coming up. And then all of a sudden we get lost in a high where we're getting our needs satisfied, or we're getting somebody to validate us or something like that. And we're just like, woo, let's keep this party going, right? Not recognizing that the higher we get, the farther the fall later.
Yeah. And the lows can be really difficult, but I feel like it's the way we think about it and go about it that matters most. And it's easy to fall back into the same thought patterns that we did last time where we're in a low, but sometimes it's helpful to try to think about the feelings differently than you did last time. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even just recognizing, like, as much as it seems like, oh, I've been here before, I've gone through this, why am I going through it again? Like, you still don't really know what's happening, and it feels similar because there's similar feelings arising. It seems on the surface like, oh, this is just the same pattern over and over and over. But every time it is different. It's almost like our mind's just trying to make it seem like it's the same thing because it feels so similar. But every time you come around, as we were talking with about with Amanda before, like you're different each and every time you go through it. And as you said just earlier, like each and every time you've changed. So you have a different perspective of it, and you're able to see something, even just a subtle difference in it, or at least, not cling so tightly to a certain thing that arises, or have a little bit less concern. And to you, because it's such a subtle shift, it doesn't seem, you don't recognize it. You don't see the differences. It's like, like we were saying on with someone, maybe Marie, like when you see a kid or someone you're close to grow up, you don't notice the changes day to day. And it's the same for you going through these situations. You don't notice how much you've changed and how much easier it is to handle these situations, even though it still seems very difficult. It's not quite as difficult as it was, the first few times you dealt with it. And so it's letting go of the idea of whether you're handling it well enough, or, oh, am I dropping back into old patterns? Like, no, you've made a lot of progress, actually, just that you don't recognize that, but it's always happening. So at least knowing that, you can continue to step through it without the opinion and concern, like, oh, am I handling this well enough? It's like, yes, you always are.
Yeah. And it's just easier to find the time to just like take a deep breath whenever I'm in like those so like uncomfortable, tense states, and just be like, oh, like I got out of this so many times before, and every time there was a little bit more of a lesson. So if I can allow the lesson to come to me, even when it's uncomfortable right now, it won't dig as deep as a hole as it seemed to dig in the past. So
yeah, that's really, it's funny because I've said this to people before, that if there was some insight, if there was some sentence that I could pass on to people that would somehow remove the necessity to rub your face up against the fucking wall of reality, I would love to. I would love to have that bit of information that would stop the requirement of you going through the fucking meat grinder. I really would, but you can't, because that's how you learn about yourself and what you're capable of. That's the hardest part about all this, is you go through stuff and you're like, fuck, this sucks. And then you get out the other end. And if you're not judging the fact that you went through it, you recognize how much you can go through. And that does help a lot. And it's funny because you were saying that, well, we've said this a number of times in this episode, that we change. Like every time we go through something, even though it's familiar, like I've picked up this cup 1,000 times, I've never picked it up like I am right now because I'm a different person. But the degree of change from one experience to the other really is based on whether or not we're willing to just be change, which is based on how much we're willing to stop thinking about ourselves, right? Because that's what drives the habits. that's what drives the repetitive cycles, is that it's all based on us trying to fulfill some need based on some sense of lack, right? But once we recognize that, the cycle starts to diminish because it's based on something that we're no longer holding on to.
Yeah. And the grip on that thing that we're holding on to is loosening more and more. And sometimes it feels like, oh, like I didn't make any progress because all of a sudden the grip is tight again. But you learned last time how to start loosening it. So you can continue to learn to do that. And each time it'll be easier and easier to let go.
Yeah. And noticing is the work. I've always said this to everyone. They're like, well, what do I do? Just notice, like, just be aware. And every time you catch yourself, you're like, oh, I'm doing the full body clench again. That's it. That's the work. It's just the recognition. You're like, oh, I'm doing that. Because what sets us back is when we don't recognize it, when we get so caught up in it that it takes us for a ride. And then all of a sudden we get so caught up in that ride that we forget, oh, fuck, I'm on this ride again. Right. So it's just the recognition. Oh, I'm doing this to myself. Why? And then we can stop. But that's it. It's just the recognition. Everybody wants to make it a 12-step program to enlightenment. It's just recognizing when you're in your way.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes you being on that ride longer to be able to notice, but the more it happens, the more you're like, oh, like this is how that ride started. That's how, you know, I'm starting to go down that ride. I can get off right now if I want to. That's my choice. I don't have to keep going on this in these thought patterns, in these habits, if I choose not to in the moment.
Exactly. It's powerful. Like even just that, it's just the noticing and recognizing that it's optional. Like for a very long time, you didn't recognize that it was optional. You didn't notice that you were in it. And so we catch ourselves in it. We notice something and then we judge ourselves. We're like, oh, I'm in it again. It's like, as Ray said, but you noticed it. You caught it. You were aware of it. And that's it right there is the fact that you're even able to be aware of the patterns and recognize the patterns for what they are and recognize that, oh, I'm dealing with stuff. It's tough. I don't know how I'm handling this. Like even just having that perspective of being able to say, oh, I'm going through some stuff. I don't know how I'm handling it, whatever. Like that in itself is progress right there. For a very long time, you didn't notice patterns. You didn't recognize, oh, I've been here. Oh, I don't have to take this thought so seriously. Oh, this is optional. Oh, I didn't think this was optional for a while, but now I've recognized that I have. It's like whenever it comes up, that's it right there. And then you can let it go. You don't have to continue to make judgments about yourself. But a lot of times we'll run back to that and think, oh, I'm not getting it. I wish I was. I should get it. It's not that either. It's never that. It's always just
it's like, oh, I'm on it again, and fighting that versus like, oh, like I'm in this thought pattern again. That's okay. I can change it though.
Because I noticed it.
It's not easy.
Here I am getting strength.
Exactly.
That's the difference, is that you stop beating yourself up and you're like, oh, I caught that again. Well, level up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Always. It's fascinating to see that. But yeah, Mary, I'm very glad you came on today. You added a lot to this conversation, and I know people are going to resonate with this one. So yeah, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more. But it's awesome to see just everything you're going through, and the progress that you're making is very, very noticeable. It is. So great to see you as always.
Great to see y'all too. Bye.
Thanks, Marie.
Right.
I think it's so interesting how often this has come up, because it's really important. So what we're doing is we're letting go of the idea of ourselves, which is letting go of the perception of division. But a big part of that is letting go of the perception of other people. And so when you're going through this stuff, when you're in these cycles of habit based on the perception of division that you are still involved with, you can't recognize when you stop that cycle, or when you stop that pattern, that you're actually still affecting everything else, because you're still caught in the idea of you having a breakthrough. But it's not you. It's your part of everything else that's happening, which is all you. It's not you're having a breakthrough. It's that you're continuing the progress of the whole, or the process of the whole, which is much better. I don't like the word progress. You're continuing the process of the whole. And so when we go through these things, like going through habitual toxic situations, or getting, going back into the need to self-validate, or going back into the need to have more control, or any of that stuff, it's recognizing that when you see that, when you get out of it, even for just a second, and allow yourself to feel a bit more free, you have given yourself the ability to empathize with other people who went down a similar path more than you could have if you didn't. So it's not that all of your suffering is just your burden alone. Your suffering is our gift.
Oh, well said. Oh, fuck yeah. It's and we're so concerned with ourselves that that's all we can possibly think about. We don't recognize the impact that we're going to be able to have for going through that. And even understanding the process of the whole, like going through a bout of shit is just the whole processing something. And then our ability to face it, as we have many times before, and we've gotten a little bit better each time, is the whole getting a little bit better, going through it. But then that's something that can be utilized by the whole for itself. Connection, conversation, insight, empathy, shared experience, like it all helps itself. And so we get so caught up in, oh, what is this I'm going through? Why am I going through this? I don't know. I thought I was over this. And then you come around to someone, they're like, yeah, fuck, I'm going through something that I thought I was through. Like, oh yeah, I know that. I've been there. Yeah. And then you just have a conversation about it. It's not even that you're there helping them, but you already have helped them by going through it and understanding that experience and being able to have the empathy and be there with them, as opposed to, judging them or whatever the fuck people do in those situations. It's that. And so again, I don't know what the fuck is happening.
I love it. It's so funny to me, because it seems so simple when you look at it this way, when you zoom out enough, and then you can zoom kind of back in, that what we're doing collectively is learning how to synchronize. That's really all it is, right? Except we keep taking it personally on each and every individual level, and that cuts us off from the process that we would automatically be doing. So this is part of that same process, but it has the ability to go in either direction. It's not predestined. As everything, you can decide right now, what do you want to do? Do you want to satisfy the idea of yourself? Do you want to chase petty things like control and power? Or do you want to chase materialistic items? Do you want to chase self-validation? Do you want to look better and act better and be superior to everyone else? Because you're welcome to pursue that, and you will experience the world that fits it, because you are limitless, and we are all that. And that's the thing. When somebody asks, oh, well, if I'm God, why can't I just win the lottery? And my response is usually, well, I don't know, ask the rest of you.
It's fucking hilarious. I love when people bring that statement up, like, oh, if I'm God, then why can't I do this? Like, if you're God, along with everyone else, who exactly is trying to win the lottery? Because you're God. You're not what you think. What you think's trying to win that. And even the whole idea of God being able to have ultimate control and power, it's like, that's just an idea that exists inside of your mind. It's like that's been my go-to recently, when people are like, oh, so you're God, so then turn that water to wine, or why don't you levitate or fly or something? It's like, whoever said God could fly? And God does as the birds, like God does as the plane. God does fly. Like it's such a limited idea of what we think that it is, and such a fascinating idea. Like, oh, God must have ultimate control. Yeah, egotistical God, idea of God, that idea just exists inside of your mind. It's not objective truth. There's not something inherent to reality that says God can do these things. that's just us making it up because we wanted to, I don't know, feel like we could believe in something and be afraid, and like we're afraid and want to soothe our fear and feel like something's watching over us to avoid the responsibility of just being what is and everything that comes with that. We're always just trying to avoid that, but I find it hilarious when people have the egotistical God mentality. Like, it's not God.
Isn't it interesting, though, that the God that we create as a concept is always based on the idea of ourselves that we feel trapped by. So if I feel powerless, I need a powerful God. If I feel afraid, I need a God that is in control of everything and is on my side so long as I meet its requirements. See, there's so much in terms of why we cling to these things, but it's always based on the same thing. It's always based on the small idea of yourself that is separate and afraid of necessity. It has to be afraid because it feels separate. So as soon as you tune into that wavelength, you're going to feel afraid because you feel separate. It's not that you are, it's just that you perceive it that way. And if you are totally caught up in it, then you're going to assume it's truth. But there is another perception or a lack of perception, if you want to look at it that way. There is the opposite end to the egotistical experience, which is the surrendering of that ego. And this is why I always find it funny, and this is what I was saying earlier, is that we really do change according to how much we are willing to be changed, not how much we're trying to change.
Yeah, like how clearly we can recognize that it's already happening. Like, I don't have to be the one doing the change, because as soon as you're that thing that's doing the change, you're not the change happening. You're not the process of it. You're something separate from it. And as you said, there's all the fear arises, all the concern, all of it comes back as soon as we feel like we, need to rely on something that isn't us. Because when we're relying upon it, that's no longer us. We're relying on something that isn't us. So therefore, we're just this little idea, and we're afraid, and we have to settle upon something and find certainty, because we can't face the reality of what we are and the uncertainty that comes with it, or at least the reality of what we're not, being never what we think. But yeah, it's fascinating to find out. One thing I did want to bring up before, and then all the calls that are coming up, was it's kind of related to this, but with kind of recognizing the dream. But anyway, earlier today I was sitting and you're talking about being still and just taking that time to like really be still. Any itches come up, don't scratch them. Any twitches, any things, and like being really still. It was straight up like an out of body experience. It was fucked. And it was similar to at the retreat, one of the nights I was staring at the bonfire and I was totally still. And it was like it was kind of like I detached to it in a way, and I was able to kind of like explore things. And I knew as soon as I moved, I was back in it. Like it was gone as soon as I moved a muscle. And I experienced the same thing today. And it was like, oh shit. It was because after you said that yesterday, I was like, oh yeah, let's try that. And so it was really, really just stillness. And so like, is it that without the movement, there's less convincing of a narrative that I'm just this? Or where does that feeling of like being able to explore? And I could straight up imagine. And so I say imagine, but like experienced me like stepping forward, walking out the door, out of the room as I was sitting there. So like, yeah, anyway, it was fucking wild and cool.
I'm really glad that you brought this up at the end of this episode, for sure. I'm going to go so far as to tell you the lack of movement has nothing to do with it, except that it does right now for you. The reason for that exercise and sitting still is to let go of your character. It's to let go of the idea that you're moving and just be in the subjective experience. But once you get that, you can move around and nothing changes. Once you get that, you understand you're never really moving. This is all a dream. Nothing has changed from you sitting still in eternity versus you sitting still in your chair. You are always sitting still as here and now forever. And this is what we do when we take psychedelics or when we meditate or we sit and we allow ourselves to relax into the present. We are relaxing into our eternal being. We are relaxing into what is. And that's why it's intense.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's kind of, I guess, and it's funny because it's like in my where I'm at right now, it's like I need it as an excuse to recognize it. Like it's like I still need some proof in order to be it. And it's like, okay, I'm not moving. I'm not moving right now. Andrew's not moving right now. And so it gets easier to see that, oh, I never really am. Like I'm always where I'm at. And so to me, it almost is in a way, and I've been saying this as I experience, like have deeper moments of clarity. Initially, I was like, oh, so it's always going to be the same type of experience. And I'm realizing now that every time it's totally different. It's from a different perspective, different experience, notice different things. And so I see it as different, but the same as the experience of like that treadmill feeling of walking and feeling like the earth is just moving under you because you are where you're at. It's just like a different sort of experience showing you the same thing. You're always just where you're at. And the rest of you, there's the perception of it moving around you, but you're moving through it simultaneously. So it's not that you're in place because there's nothing else that isn't also in place. You're moving through yourself. And so there isn't of movement through anything because you're just moving through yourself. You're not getting to another location or destination. It's still just here now.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
It all just points at the same thing. And it's all very obvious once you get out of the way. But until that point, we're talking nonsense. I just got to be here now and I'm God. What? And there's all these ideas of here, now, God, you, like all of these things. And they all get in the way because it really is just this understanding that these are all just words that change meaning the deeper you get and the farther away you get from the fiction of you. Right? Like the word relax means something totally different to somebody who is egotistically driven versus somebody who is not. Somebody who's egotistically driven will actually look at the word relax and see something that tears them down. Like, don't worry, just relax. Well, I'm relaxed. You're not, quite obviously, right? But if you relax, then there's this fear that you won't have control, right? Whereas somebody who isn't driven by that ego who isn't trying to be something. When you're like, relax, they'll go, right, I got caught up there. You're right. Totally different response. Same fucking word means something totally different.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's like with anything we do can be perceived in an infinite number of ways. And so it's never really us. It's never like means anything about us, or it's like it's us saying it, obviously, but if it's being perceived in a million different ways, it doesn't mean anything about us. It's the perceiver taking the ownership, but it doesn't mean anything about them either. They're just making it mean something about them and getting concerned about it based on how they perceive themselves. And depending on their perspective and their point of view, everyone's going to have a different perception. And so there becomes less and less weight for what you say, what you share, and how you go about expressing insights or going through a conversation or interacting with people, because it's not on you. It never has been. It's never. But then on the flip side, we like to sometimes, when we have a really insightful conversation, feel like we helped someone. We like to take credit for that, and then we're not in it. Again, that pulls us out of it. It's like both the concern for the judgment about what we say, but also when we feel like people are thinking very highly of us, then we take credit for that. It's two sides of the same coin. Always. You don't have to have a positive idea of yourself. You don't have to build yourself up. It's two sides of the same coin. Always, you can let go of that idea of yourself and be free.
And there is the danger of counting yourself as a spiritual guru, as looking at yourself as the one who knows versus those that don't. It immediately separates you from the experience of being the process. You diminish everything you are in just being something, regardless of how nice and shiny it might sound and how much everybody's like, that's what we want. This is why, again, I love Krishnamurti's choice to leave the Order of the Star. They wanted him to lead hundreds of thousands of people as the world teacher, the reincarnation of Buddha. And his whole point was, yeah, but you need to take care of your own shit. It's not up to me. You need responsibility. We need to wake the fuck up, not just follow someone, right? And that's very much the point. And so these call-in shows, the groups that we have, I fucking love them. Like, holy fuck, this episode was amazing. Like, I just want to say very, very quickly to everybody who called in, wow, so much insight. And for so many of you who I know, I've watched that progression. I've watched one insight, one challenge, one insight, one challenge. Like, you're just going through it. And to hear everything that you've said today from the perspective that you're saying it, because you see, that is it. I've heard a lot of spiritual people say, oh, I can feel the bliss of the universe. And we're all one. And you can feel that it's not fucking authentic. And it's not authentic because it's still trying to be something pleasant. Unity is intense. Anybody who tells you the experience of being yourself, whole and complete, is a pleasant feeling is full of shit. They are full of shit. Pleasant is in there, but it is not a one-tone experience by any means. Yeah, you got pleasure and pain. You've got joy and fear. And it's all revolving around you, inside you, like a fucking cyclone. And the only thing you can do is be free of it. And that in itself is what we're talking about. The ability to dance with everything that you are without ever letting it beat you down. Because the only reason it does is because you think it can.
Because on that side of it, with the spiritual gurus, everyone like, oh, love and light. Oh, this is all beautiful. It's rooted in a fear. It's rooted in a concern for facing the entirety of you. So you're huddled in the corner, like, yeah, love and light. Yay. Yeah. It's like, you're hiding in the corner. You can come out. You can come hang. There's nothing to fear. But it's very clear when you're in that state and you're clinging to that idea. No, this is it. It's all beautiful, love and everything, rainbows. And it's not all that. And there's a resistance to reality, and freedom is just about letting go of the concern, being willing to face every aspect of you. Because as you cling to the love and light, as you cling to the good feelings, the good vibes only, and all that bullshit, like, you're not willing to step into certain situations. You're not willing to face other iterations of yourself. You're not willing to admit that, you had grown up in a similar situation as that person who did that atrocity, that you would have done it too. You're not willing to admit that. If you're not willing to admit that, you're not free. So,
well said. Well said. That was fucking awesome. I think we should wrap it up on that point. I don't want to fucking ruin that. That was great.
Fair enough. But yeah, this has been a fun one. I really enjoyed because pretty much everyone who joined has been people who've been around for a very long time. So it's been really cool to continue to see everyone have the enthusiasm and willingness to continue on despite everything going on in their life, in the world, in society, blah, 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 blah. It's inspiring to see people sticking it out, because it's not the easiest path to be on, but it's worthwhile if you're willing to stick it out.
Hell yeah. And just for everybody who isn't watching this, path was in air quotes. You could have heard the air quotes. Actually, you can hear the space that we leave between the words to imply it's not what we mean. So we're going to end this here. We are going to continue in 15 minutes on Patreon for a tier 2 call that lasts for an hour and a half. You can chat with us on the screen, ask anything you like, share your stories, meet the rest of the community. It's always a lot of fun, and it gets super insightful and deep, and it's totally private. Understand that none of the conversations we have on Patreon are ever put out in the public, so nobody ever sees them except other Patreon members. We have over 700 or over 600 hours worth of group video on our Patreon page. if you're looking for a deep conversation and you want to get to know the community, that's definitely where to be. And it's only $5 a month, so it's totally worthwhile. Thanks so much, Andrew. This has been a blast.
It really has.